Okay, so I made I made June Foot Month. It's only Foot Month in our group, unfortunately. It's not Foot Month anywhere else. I just made it up, and it's because I love feet. They're the best thing ever. People have a love-hate relationship with their feet. I'm fully aware of this usually because when I meet people for the first time, they don't want me to look at the feet or get them out in front of me. It seems like some lot of shame and embarrassment about feet, but they are essentially really I'm stating the obvious here, but it's worth thinking about. They're the only things that connect us to the earth. You know, we are a two-legged mammal. We stand up on our back legs and we walk on 2 feet. And for that reason, the feet themselves are pretty impressive. They've got, fun facts, 33 joints in each foot, so that's 66 joints. 4 layers of muscle in the sole of the feet, lots of little muscles in there. You've obviously got your arches running side to side and front to back. But when your feet aren't doing what they're supposed to, which is sensing the environment, telling your body where they are, what sort of terrain they're on, they can become very weak. And all things like plantar fasciitis, bunions, flat feet, shin splints, because it's not just how the feet function. If you're looking at the feet, you've also got to look what attaches to them, which is your Achilles tendon and your calf muscles. Any issues like that, quite often, you know, you'll find if you are suffering with some kind of foot issue or lower calf issue, that your foot is intrinsically or is just weak and it's just not being used. And, you know, we're kind of led to believe, pretty much by the shoe industry, that you need a heel and you need some support under your foot. And that may be the case if you've never used your foot. So if you're like me, I'm 46 years old, and I've been working on my feet now for about 10 years. But up until that point, so say 35, mid-30s, I was a heel wearer, I was a fashion shoe wearer, I had flat feet, been diagnosed with flat feet, overpronation, oh, there's the thing to make you part with a load of money for your orthotics, which I did. And so, you know, all of that came down to the fact that my feet weren't particularly strong because I'd had them stuffed in a shoe for 35 years. You know, starting off with my parents thinking that was good for me, getting to my teens and thinking that fashion shoes were a good idea, and they were because they look lovely, don't they? But when you start learning about your feet and what they should be doing and what they should look like, it becomes a whole different thing. So, like I say, I was diagnosed with flat feet. I had all sorts of knee pain and IT band pain when I was running, and so eventually I was fitted with a very expensive pair of orthotics. And it wasn't until I moved out to Australia and started doing some courses in human movement and anatomy and natural movement, and started to realise that, you know, the muscles in the feet are just like any other muscles in the body. If you train them and work them, they become stronger. And over the last 10 years, I've managed to, I'm going to say fix, I don't really like the word fix, but fix my flat feet. I no longer have flat feet. You know, my arches aren't massive. I don't have massive arches, but I don't need massive arches. I just need something springy under my foot. So it is possible to sort out your arches. It is possible to reverse a bunion as long as it's not gone too far. So your bunion is where the big toe is pointing over towards the little toes, and you finish up with this. It's not a growth, by the way. It's not a growth of bone. It's just the end of the toe bone, if you like, is now angled outwards at the side of the foot. And so it looks unsightly, it rubs and all the rest of it. And again, the muscle that controls the big toe being where it should be, which is wide and out, gets switched off or weakened by the fact that we're always in shoes. And so today was more a case of just rattling off some stuff about shoes. I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm not here to sell you anything. I'm here to say, look, this is what's what, and then you take that information away and do with it as you wish. So given that I don't have any normal shoes anymore, I have borrowed one of Simon's trainers. So Simon is my other half, and this is one of his trainers. So the first thing is blatantly obvious, it's got a heel. So any heel where the heel is higher than the toe, and pretty much that's all shoes. So even men's dress shoes, even trainers, they've all got a heel. And as soon as you put a heel or a wedge underneath your heel, it's going to alter your ability to walk properly, to line your pelvis up over your feet, to line your ribs over your pelvis. It throws you into all sorts of weird and wonderful positions. If you can imagine, if you were solid, like a bookshelf, and you put something under the heel at the back, it would pitch you forward. Yeah, it would pitch forward. So you have to make lots of adjustments at the knees and the lower back particularly to get you upright again over that heel. So lower back pain, knee pain. I mean, heels are associated with with knee arthritis, as is the amount of cushioning. So just coming back to this, there is research to show, research to show that the amount of cushioning under your foot is directly related to how much knee arthritis you might suffer as you get older, which is kind of interesting. And that's more to do with the fact that a cushioned shoe, or a shoe that isn't barefoot, isn't minimalist, hides the impact of the ground. Your foot can't feel the ground, so it's striking perhaps heavier than it would do normally. And the shoe can't absorb all those impact forces. It takes the impact off your foot, but that impact still has to go somewhere. So you still feel it up the rest of your body. All right, so that's the heel. Moving on to the front of the shoe. So your feet should be widest at the toes, as opposed to most shoes being widest here, which is sort of the ball of the foot, and then narrow at the toes. So instead of being, see if I can do this for you, there's my toes in this shoe. My toes have to do that. So I'm not getting this nice wide, so when your foot lands and you walk over your foot should flatten and splay and then recoil back up. So as you step on it, it flattens, that's your arch flattening, it splays, gets wider, and then springs back up. And if your foot is being held in this abnormally narrow position, and we only have this narrow position because we think it looks nice, it's like a cultural thing, your foot can't do any of that. So it's being held in a sort of constricted position. And you can imagine if you wore really tight mittens all day, how your hands would feel. You wouldn't be able to do very much with your hands, and they wouldn't feel particularly great in there. And you can imagine they're not going to be very strong and mobile after they've been in there for 30 odd years. So that's a narrow toe box. It contributes quite obviously to bunions because it's pushing your big toe over towards the other toes all the time and being held there for hours and hours and hours a day. It's not rocket science to kind of go, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Or it does to me anyway. The other thing about, let's see if I can show you this. The other thing about shoes like this is they have what they call a toe spring. So if you can see the toes, or the toe box of this shoe is held like a good inch or so, if not more, off the ground. If you can see that, let me put it against my t-shirt. Yeah, there you go. So you can see this big gap between the front of the shoe and the floor, which is the block at this moment in time. They call it a toe spring, and the reason why they put a toe spring in there is to give it this almost like this rocker shape. Because if you've got a shoe that doesn't bend, which most shoes don't, so there's very little flexibility in the shoe in comparison, say, to this barefoot shoe, which is, you know, as flexible as you can get really without going barefoot. Then in order for you to walk, they have to put in this kind of rounded shape so that you can continue to walk, as it were, over your foot, as opposed to if you were trying to walk and you were plank shaped like this, it would be very awkward. So that's why they put a toe spring in. But again, you know, toe spring, your toes being held up off the floor, quite high really as well, and then held all together as well. So it contributes quite extensively, again, back to bunions, absolutely, but also to like plantar heel pain and plantar fasciitis, because your foot is being held in a sort of, like, it's pulling on the fascia all the time because your toes are being held up. That's it, in a nutshell. We talked briefly about flexibility. The shoe's not flexible. You literally cannot feel anything through this sole, which, you know, when your feet aren't particularly strong, they are overly sensitive. If you're one of those people that can't walk on the gravel on the beach or gravel in the back garden, you kind of know how sensitive your feet can be. That's not normal. Your feet should be able to cope with something like that, and the only reason that they can't at this moment in time is because they've never had to. Again, as you get stronger, as you get your feet out more, you'll be able to tolerate different surfaces, which is what your feet were kind of designed for. So we've got this inflexible sole that you can't feel anything through, which again, it's almost like, how would you describe it? It's like putting on a blindfold. So, you know, we value our eyesight, we use it to move about safely, as it were, and your feet are designed to sense the environment. Obviously they can't see, they do it with little sensors in the soles of the feet that sense texture, vibration, differences in terrain, whether the surface is flat and level, whether it's bumpy, whether it's hard, whether it's soft. And as it's sensing the environment, it's sending these signals back up to your brain, and your brain is telling the rest of your body where to be in time and space, where to be in time and space. So how to position your pelvis as you move across different terrain. It's really very clever. So as soon as you put on something like this, you're essentially putting on a blindfold, and your brain and your body loses its connection to the ground, which, you know, has its disadvantages. This sort of shoe, again, just because of the way it holds your foot and the way we've been taught to find a shoe that fits and is snug, and you know, you should be able to have a space between your toe and the end, but no, don't worry about the space at the side. But essentially you're cutting off the blood supply to your feet a little bit in shoes. Because the foot can't move, so like all muscles in the body, it's the movement that keeps them supple and strong and healthy. The movement also pumps blood through the muscles and the joints surrounding them, and the blood flow brings the oxygen in, and it's the oxygen that keeps your tissues healthy and plump and working and moving. And when you start to reduce oxygen flow to a muscle or a body part or tissue or a group of tissues like the foot, not only does the foot weaken even more, it's going to find it very hard to recover from things like plantar fasciitis or other foot conditions. I mean, even down to something as silly as like athlete's foot. You know, athlete's foot is a fungal condition, but that fungus lives on your foot and on your skin all the time. And the reason why it manages to get into or become a problem and give you that horrible, scratchy, scabby, horrible condition is that the tissues of the foot are weakened. So by increasing the amount of oxygen going into the foot, you can recover quickly, or more quickly, let's say, from issues with the feet. I'm not going to list them all here. So it's strengthening the feet. Then it can be as simple as getting them out and walking about in them on different surfaces and different terrains. And one of the things I hear most from pretty much every client that I've worked with is, well, I'm always barefoot. And I go, no, nod sagely, and go, And they go, well, I am. And I go, okay, when are you barefoot? Well, I'm barefoot whenever I'm at home. Okay, and what are you doing while you're at home? Well, I come home from work and I take my shoes off. And usually at that point I go, do you put slippers on? And some of them are wise to me and they go, no, I'm barefoot. And I go, oh, have you got socks on? And they go, oh, yeah, I wear socks. Barefoot is barefoot, no slippers, no socks. But even then, you know, if you're working all day, so you've got 10 hours a day in a shoe, you come home, you get home at 5 or 6 o'clock at night, you take your shoes off, you walk around on your carpet or even your hardwood floor, that surface is still flat and level. And let's face it, you might wonder about, make your tea, maybe do the ironing, whatever it is you're doing. But ultimately, you're going to sit down on your sofa, prop your feet up and chill out for a while. So you might be barefoot, but your feet aren't actually doing anything. It's the equivalent of really going to the gym, looking at the equipment, walking past it and thinking you're going to develop some muscle from using it when you're not using it. And it's no different with your feet. I've been advocating for years for a foot day at the gym, so we've got leg day and arm day, and we've even got glute day these days, but we don't have foot day. Perhaps we should have some equipment that exercises the feet. But in lieu of that, the easy way to strengthen your feet is to get them out and get them out in weird and wonderful places. And if you can't get them out in weird and wonderful places, then the other option is to use you know, a more minimal shoe. It doesn't have to be one of these that's got toes, all that kind of stuff. You're just looking for the most flat, flexible, wide shoe that you can find, so that even when you are out and about and walking on different surfaces, even if you can't be barefoot, you're actually getting the benefit of some movement into your foot rather than just kind of being sat there dying slow death in your shoe. Oh, I knew what I was going to say. I was going to tell you the story about the if you're one of those people, you know, particularly women, this one, but if you're one of those women whose feet are always cold and you get into bed on a night and your husband or your partner bemoans the fact that you've got blocks of ice at the end of your legs, by getting your feet stronger, they do actually warm up, so everything kind of changes. It's quite fascinating really, but it is if you're a nerd like me. So that's why I love feet. That's why we're doing June as Foot Month. I know I'm a little bit behind. We're on the 8th already. I've not done very much, but I've been busy with clients. So forgive me, I will try and put some stuff out. I know I've had plenty of questions. I've just recorded a video, second video on plantar fasciitis for one of my clients, so I'll plonk that in the group. But if you've got any other questions about feet or foot conditions or anything like that, let me know, and I'll try and cover them for you. But otherwise, take your shoes off.